Hi all, that was a painful loss I just posted, and I thought I was doing well. I thought knight g5 here, and I was going to win the exchange. So knight g5 looked really good, and it looked actually visually as if these bishops are really good. But it has got me thinking actually that queen c7. So I was sort of satisfied with knight f7 because I thought that was winning the exchange. If he doesn't take, then we have that classic, smothered mates combination. And then I was satisfied also that okay, he plays knight e5, and I thought big deal. I moved the queen to e6, and I didn't look any further. And then it ended up that actually that's a total disaster here, because after queen e6 he has actually knight eg4, and this pawn's pinned, so I can't play g3. I can't play h3. It's a crude mate on h2. Now the funny thing is, I'm working on another tips video. I'm starting to see from post-mortem analysis something maybe about maybe dogmatism coming in, that I'm content with mini goals, whether that's say restrain then blockade the destroy, as if there's some sense of achievement from a mini goal of winning a certain battle. Like here it's winning the exchange, but really you want to win the king, you don't want to win the exchange. And actually this bishop implies that there's a dangerous pin on g7 potentially. If these two pieces were out of the way, imagine these two pieces were out of the way, there would be a dangerous pin on g7. And if there's a pin on g7, you can celebrate pins, you can make use of the immobility of the pin piece. So here it would be h6. Now I want to sort of maybe give you the concept, the strategic concept I'm trying to abstract into a new tips video potentially, which I'm hoping will be a convincing set of extended tips from the first tips video. But I want to call this tip winning the war and not the battle. Or in fact, and sometimes you win the battle and you lose the war immediately after, like this vividly demonstrated. So I won a small battle to win the exchange. And in a previous post-mortem, if you remember, I won a small battle to blockade a pawn, but I ended up losing the war in terms of, the pawn was actually later very dangerous. But here, how can you actually, instead of trying to win the battle by winning the exchange, which is like winning a mini battle, you want to win the war. Now, I've given you a slight clue about this diagonal. There was actually a fantastic resource here in this position. Okay. I don't know if it's too hard, this. If I give you 10 seconds, please either stop the video, or you might just want to use the 10 seconds to try and find a really fantastic resource. So if you want to do that now, starting from now. Okay. Instead of knight f7, which is kind of winning the battle, losing the war, there's actually knight d5, believe it or not. And this gets rid of one of the pieces out of the way on that diagonal. That little clue I gave about this pawn being immobile. So knight d5. Okay, so let's examine some responses. Say knight takes d5. Can you spot a fantastic move here if I give you 10 seconds starting from now? Okay, queen h6. Look, all of a sudden this bishop, the immobile pawn, I suppose we don't think of pins like that. If there's no immediate pin in the position, if we go back, there's two bits in the way here, so we don't, visually, if you're confronted with this position, you don't immediately think, how can I make this pawn immobile? But actually, if you've got a bishop pointing over there, a bishop pointing over here is not likely to pin anything, because the king can't go over there anymore. It's on the edge of the board. If a bishop was here, you could potentially pin f7 and celebrate the pin on f7 by using g6. A move like queen g6, as long as there wasn't a pawn on h7. But with the king there and a bishop there, we're looking for a pin across the diagonal, and we're talking about g7. And in fact, this is quite dramatic actually, this example. It's kind of relevant to Nakamura's recent loss, because there was a bishop coming to e5, pinning a pawn on pinning something on g7, which maybe we should check out in a video soon. But here, look at this. Would you have considered this pin on G7? Now let's be honest. Please post your comment first of all about that observation. Do you immediately assess this position? There's a potential pin on G7. If so, that's wonderful. I mean, I didn't. I'm just looking to win a little battle here. I don't know about you guys. I just want to win the exchange, and that's not the way to get over 22 whatever on the ICC auto pairing. I think you've got to look at winning the wars. So winning the war, this move, knight d5. Now, okay, let's look at alternatives though. So knight takes d5 is terrible, but say queen d7. Okay, so this is with engine analysis. What would be a brilliant move here? There's a great move here actually as well. If I give you 10 seconds here, what would you play here? Okay, a crushing move is bishop takes f6. So the queen has to take now. Actually, let's add the bits. Well, if once the queen takes, I've got that in a separate thing. You can do bishop takes g7 check, and then knight takes, and you're winning the exchange and the war. You know, it's much more like convincing. In fact, in this position, even more convincing than just winning the exchange here. This is another little test. If you have this position, again, this is the key question. Do you take on f8 or do you take on e7? This is the difference again between the battle, winning a battle and winning a war. If you want to win a war, you might consider knight takes e7, because then when you win the exchange, there's also a little tactic here. Can you spot the tactic here if I give you 10 seconds starting from now? Okay, bishop takes h7, and this is really going to leave black completely lost. He doesn't want to lose another exchange, or I mean a whole rook like that. So he's just lots of pawns down now. Blimey. So if we go back, so a position I did think earlier in this game was intuitively promising, putting the bishop on b2. But if we don't understand the full impact of putting bishops on the diagonals in terms of the pinning and the celebration of those pins, then we're losing a lot of dynamic potential from having these bishops in the first place. You might as well not have them if you're not going to use them. So here, the bishop was, the diagonal was being opened up actually, because he's removing this pawn after this blunder, this bad move knight g4, and he's trying for an f2, and that also sort of made me think, oh, that's an ironic sort of punishment that I'm going now for f7. Which added to the attractiveness. I'm sort of punishing the opponent in the way that I was about to be punished. But actually, no. The winning the war here is knight d5. After knight g5. And in fact, even in this position, I think knight d5 is very, very strong. +4, believe it or not. +4 compared to +2 for knight g5. Knight d5, and again, we're getting this pin to celebrate on this diagonal. So say knight takes d5, there's queen h6, and believe it or not, this is a forced mating free. What can black do about the forced mating free? Okay, say he fends off g7, you just play bishop f6, and you're on h7. h7's also got to be there's two squares for mating here because of these beautiful bishops. I don't know. I think this forms the next tip video, you see, I want to present. At the moment, I'm convinced about 3 tips, and I think this is a 4th tip. I'm convinced to talk about the center as the first tip, accumulating advantages, the second, prophylaxis, the third. Stop that, I'm responsive plugging in. And this one, the 4th tip, will be about winning wars, not battles, which I think is a fairly convincing tip as well, from recent examples. I don't know if I'm going to reach a 5th, but I don't know what you guys think. Is that a valid tip? You're given this position, you're tempted, perhaps some of you, I hope, tempted just to win the exchange, when in fact you can win the war, the entire war. Forget winning a mini battle. It's almost, you could say, knight f7 is an example of dogmatism, because you're adhering to this principle of winning the exchange, which you think is good. In the same way you might think restrain then blockade, you might think that's good. Just because you think something's good, it could be a lot more effective if you were trying to win the war, not the battle. Anyway, so I hope you got something out of that. I'm going to paste the PGN of this if you want to see. There's other variations I did have a look at. Actually, let's just make sure. There's a Queen D7, so it takes here this line, which can be improved on, I think, with Knight takes E7. There's some analysis: Queen D6, Queen H3, and here, you know, black is in trouble over here. If H6 takes, okay, and if bishop takes, there's a crushing move here. Actually, let's just test you guys on this. So 10 seconds here. What would be the crushing move here if you have this position? Starting from now. Okay, Queen F5. How is black now defending? It's very difficult. You're breaking through. If G6, you know, Queen G6, you're breaking through on H7 as well. It starts to get really nasty here. Not replay arrows. Let's just check for those not convinced. So G6, take on G6. Black starts defending H7. You just bang. F6 is going now. I don't think we need any more evidence there. But I'll put the whole PGM with analysis here because I think this is another extractive example. It's almost dogmatic to try and you know, win mini battles when really you should be aiming to win the war, which is really what chess is about. It's a war game, not a winning, you know, exchanges. The game doesn't end because you win the exchange. And in fact, it's winning a battle and losing the war, because I'm actually abruptly in this game example getting just immediately mated, which is sort of amusing in its own right. The queen didn't have many squares here. So actually, this position, actually after winning the exchange, there was one more chance here with Knight D5, which actually, again, Knight D5 not taking on R7 is still, believe it or not, giving us an advantage to white for some mysterious reason. If Knight takes, that's a disaster for black. Rook takes F7, and that would be like winning the queen, because you could take the queen here. Otherwise, how is G7 protected? Here you can go again for H7, Queen F5. So these bishops were working wonders on the diagonal. So it was a bit of a tragedy loss, actually, that the bishops in so many variations provided beautiful pins, and the associated beautiful celebration of those pins on the immobility of the pin pieces, the squares that could be then used by the queen. So yeah, I hope you get something from this, and you know, think next time you're about to win the exchange, are you just winning a little battle and not winning the war? Okay, comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.